go to a new repair shop to get it fixed again. And the new repair shop says, well, that fix is going to be $2,500 or $3,000, right? And you say, well, I don't have $3,000, so I'm going to sue the old repairman for screwing it up so that I can get the money to pay the new repair shop. This is, I mean, Russ, when I say this is very common, it's really, really common. So because people don't have that kind of money just sitting around in a bank account when they've already paid the old repairman what they thought would be to fix the problem.
Right.
So they show up to court and they say, Judge, I want $3,000 so that I can pay the new repairman to fix the car. And the judge says, well, is the new repairman here? And the litigant, the plaintiff says, no. They say, well, what evidence do you have? And the plaintiff brings that estimate, right, that says it's $3,000. And the judge says, I can't look at this. It's hearsay because the person that wrote it is not here. And then we get into the reason for that. And a lot of it's all because of authenticity, right? How do you verify that the plaintiff, I mean, we trust people generally, but how do you verify that the plaintiff didn't just put a random number in a spreadsheet and say, this is how much I want because this is the amount of the repair, right? They could have put $10,000 in the spreadsheet.
Pick a number, any number.
Totally. And so the judge says, well, I can't look at this estimate because it's hearsay. That person who wrote it or the mechanic, an owner of that business who maintains those records is not here. So I can't verify that this is an authentic document. And so then the judge says, you're not an expert in cars, Mr. Plaintiff or Mrs. Plaintiff, so I can't even confirm that what you're saying is accurate, that the repair, that what you need to do now is directly related to the first repair versus having nothing to do with the first repair and just being an independent problem, right? Because you're not a car person, you're an accountant. Or you're a secretary or whatever you are. You're not a car person.
Or you run a radio show.
Or you're right. Or you're a pirate.
Or you're a pirate.
And so what happens is
even less credibility.
Right. So then the judge says, I have to rule for the defendant here because you didn't bring the right people to testify.
And it's not that the car repair was completed, everything was in place, everything was done correctly and or incorrectly. It's the fact that the evidence wasn't delivered in the right sequence or order.
That's 100% right. I mean, if the plaintiff is to be believed, which we trust that people under oath, they raise their right hand and swear under oath that they're telling the truth. If they're to be believed that they are telling the truth, which the system relies on, then had the plaintiff had the mechanic in court, had the plaintiff ensured that the mechanic was there, the plaintiff would have gotten the $3,000 no problem in that example. Yeah. And then they would have been able to go repair their car. All would be well. Instead, they walk out of court with nothing except a busted car and no money to pay for the repair.
And probably some fees for actually taking it to court.
100%. Yeah, they have to pay for the filing fees and to serve the defendant. The sheriff in Georgia, we have to serve with the sheriff, so they have to pay the $50 to serve with the sheriff. And they're out. So not only you're right, not only are they out the car repair amount, but they're also out the fees that they paid to pursue
and the
case.
Time it took to show up to court and not go to work and not, do anything that you were generating revenue with.
That's right. I mean, there is so much lost here. Not to mention, the judge had to sit up there on the county had to pay for the judge to be there and for the clerks to be there, all to watch over a case that didn't go the way it should have gone because the plaintiff didn't know what they were doing. And so that happens, that example happens all the time. On the defendant side, it's a lot more of timing. How long do you have to file the answer? We see all the time that defendants either don't answer because they're afraid and don't know what to do. They clam up. Or they take too long to answer and then file an untimely answer and then they're in default. Yeah. Or in court, they just lose it, frankly, emotionally, because this credit card company is suing for $10,000 and there's a reason they haven't paid it, right? Yeah. They frankly,
they're already distressed.
They're already distressed. And so they come in without confidence, without any knowledge of how to negotiate a resolution or that they even can negotiate a resolution. And that's if they show up to court at all. Yeah. So these are, when you look at it's both sides of the aisle here, as we would say. Plaintiff and defendant both have very fixable problems with the small claims process.
And when it boils down to it, Stephen, there's so many opportunities for people to actually come together, find a resolution, and actually come, I mean, there's so many situations where we've probably had an opportunity to negotiate long before court even became part of the conversation at all. And court typically is the last part of the equation, in many cases. And I think people get, like you said, they're already emotionally invested in the outcome or the potential loss. So they really are kind of stumbling emotionally around the subject already. And so it's really something that people have to realize that, okay, calm down. Let's just look at this logically. Let's walk through the process. And so your course actually walks business owners or individuals through the whole process to kind of give them an overview of this process.
That's right. And there are other services out there that do the letter writing, right? The document generation piece of this. So before court, you're right. It should be, in every case, court should be a last resort option when you have done everything you can. And one thing I haven't done, and it's on the radar, but it's not our priority right now, is the document generation for pretrial demand letters. Okay, for a letter to say, hey, this is your last shot before I file suit. And one of the reasons we haven't done that is because A, it already exists. There are services out there that'll do it. And B, it's I don't want to call it low-hanging fruit, but it's really just a template. You push a button and you fill in the name and the amount. And that's not what I'm trying to do. One of the things I'm trying to do as a practicing attorney who's been in court is solve the problems that have never been solved. And that's not the letter writing, right? The letter writing is not that problem. The problem is the training and coaching for actually doing the case in court.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like one of those people that says, I'm contacting my lawyer. It's like,
yeah, and I'll tell you a quick one. Speaking of people
tell us a story.
being kind to each other. One of the videos that I talk about is on settlement. It's a whole lesson on just settlement. And in that lesson, I actually go through, look, your best chance of settlement is being nice and being kind, right? Being a jerk isn't going to resolve the case really. No. And it's also not going to make you feel better, right? No. Like at the end of the day, and I say this about other lawyers. I mean, lawyers have a knack for being jerks, and that's a personality trait that a lot of them hold. Very argumentative, type A personalities, always want to win at all costs. But we all have families to go home to, or homes to go home to, or dogs or cats or whatever at the end of the day. And so what's most important to me, and this is what I get into in the settlement video, is about smiling and about knowing that, look, you're in court, right? And you might have a good case on either side, plaintiff or defendant, and you might want to go before the judge and give it a roll of the dice, or tee it up and go, as I say. But sometimes the best option is to put a smile on your face, agree to a resolution that, you might be losing a little bit, and the other side might be losing a little bit in a compromise. I mean, that's what compromise is. Right. But at the end of it all, you're most likely winning a little bit too. Yeah. And that's something that a lot of people forget in this whole process. Sure, could that, in that example I gave of the car repair, could $3,000, could that be the total price? Yes. Would that make you whole? Yes. Okay, but if you don't have the right evidence and the witnesses, you walk out of there with zero. If you negotiate a settlement and give in a little bit, maybe you walk out of there with $2,000. Okay, so all right, you pay a little bit, you're not made whole, we get it, that's the way the system works, right? Yeah. But you got more than zero. And sometimes the stubbornness of demanding it all leads to a worse outcome than putting a smile on your face, remembering something too, that everybody in the courtroom is a person. Yeah. right? The judge is a person, the clerk is a person, the sheriff's a person, the other side of the other person there that you're suing or being sued by is a person. They're all people. And so to treat people, even when you're in court, as less than people, or with disdain, or just animosity, it's not going to help you succeed.
No. My statement to that is smiles are always free. Give them away as often as possible. It's like it helps you in the long run every single time. There's no experience I've ever had where a smile's created a problem for me personally. But hey, I'm sure that could be the case in some circumstances. However, where do you, now that you've had this experience and you've had kind of a range of cases in some courts, and you've had some experience with individuals in court and, with the judges and the clerks and the attorneys, how do you define justice? What does that mean to you now today after being through this process for a number of times?
Well, I can tell you this. I don't define it by winning and losing. Because I think as any lawyer would tell you, it's complicated. Yeah. Right? That's how we answer every question. It's complicated, right? I don't want to give you a yes or no answer on anything. Justice to me is being able to walk away knowing the right thing with the right result, okay, or the just result, right? That's where the word justice comes from. And I know I'm using a word to define a word that's the same word, which is like, come on, Stephen, be a little better than that. But let's talk about the settlement example, right? Like, justice isn't always 100% of what you want. Yeah. Right? Sometimes justice takes into account, always actually, not just sometimes, a lot of different factors, right? Including economics, including evidence and argument and the law, right? And sometimes you give in to the law to have a just outcome. Yeah. Right. A good example is in criminal cases, which is not something I do regularly. I did at the old firm with the door law. We did a handful of criminal cases. But sometimes you have cases where an innocent person will plead guilty to a lesser charge. Okay, so when I think of criminal cases, my mind just goes to murder because I think of the news and that's all they talk about and whatever else. Right. But you have some cases, like a DUI, let's say, is probably a good example, where maybe the evidence doesn't point to it, doesn't support the charge, where there's a whole host of different things that say, no, I'm not guilty of DUI, right? I'm not guilty of anything. I wasn't even driving, right? There are crazy things happen. I'm the wrong person, right? All kinds of crazy things can happen in the law with accusations and with things. But rather than go through a year-long court case that costs $20,000, you plead to a reckless driving charge in a week, right? And it costs you $500. You get a couple points on the license, and you move on. Yeah. And I'm not saying that is recommended, and in every circumstance it's different. Again, this is not even an area of law I really know much about. So, for everybody watching, take my advice as a real grain of salt, right? Call me a fool when if any criminal attorneys are watching this, they probably are calling me a fool. Right, but when you think,
there are cases where that could be considered a win, in the fact that you didn't get charged and prosecuted for the other original case.
That's right, and the person who made the plea, right, the defendant would say, horse. I don't know if I can curse on the show, but they would say that's ridiculous. There's nothing just about that. That's not justice. Yeah. Right? But the way our system is set up, sometimes you have to make a sacrifice to move on. Yeah. And that's in settlement for civil cases. That's in resolution of criminal cases. It doesn't really matter where you go. It's because there isn't a perfect system. No. Right? There's no such thing as 100% justice in every case. It can't happen. The system can't support it. No system I know of can support that, right? But but that's the idea, is we do the best we can, and we hope for an outcome in every case, whether it's civil, a monetary case or a criminal case. We hope for an outcome that at the end of it all, you say the right result, given all of the factors,
Yeah.
is what happened. Because no case is in a vacuum.
No, not at all. And people forget, sometimes, especially like disputes with property lines, or a road has been established and the fence line is out of alignment and things like that. All of these different nuances in these cases can really, it's really driven at times, like, you talk about the Hatfields and McCoy's battle, and I'm thinking to myself, it's probably over a fence line that was, put in someplace, and they just had to go around a tree or something. All of a sudden they said, that's my property. No, that's my property. The fence has been there for 30 years. It's like, and it's like those types of arguments are just always going to come up. They're always going to be there. And compromise and consideration and kindness is probably, 9 times out of 10, the only thing you need to solve the problem. Come up with a resolution. And
it's so true. Those are the hardest of my cases that I've had. I'll be honest with you. Like, if I can classify from cases that have been the easiest to the hardest, and when I say easiest to hardest, I mean to resolve and for the parties to move on, neighbor disputes are just awful, because it doesn't matter what happens at the end of it, you're still living next to them.
Yeah.
Right? So if there's ever a problem that is so pervasive or so strong that it requires an attorney to be involved, then the settlement is irrelevant, actually, because you're still, it doesn't matter what you agree to or who does what, you still leave your driveway and see them.
It's almost salt in the wounds after that point.
It can be. And it's one of those things I tell people all the time. You don't get to pick your neighbors.
Yeah.
Right? It's like your family. You don't get to pick your family. You're born into your family. You buy. One of the things we don't do when we buy houses is we don't interview our neighbors.
Yeah.
Maybe some people do, but it's like a job interview. In 30 seconds, how much are you really going to get? How certain are you really going to be about your neighbors?
Hey, Stephen, we want to recognize a few people that came into the room. Angie, good morning, Pirates.
Hi, Angie.
A LinkedIn user. Great to see you here. Mark Morrison. Hello, all. How are you doing? And Sarathi, he's late in his day. Hi, Russ and Stephen from India. Good evening, morning. I practically study your laws and Indian Constitution, articles versus bureaucracy, and various stuff on administration, so love my subjects. That's fantastic. And a lot of people are fascinated by the law and some of the famous cases that are out there. And it's like you were saying about London, Stephen, it's once you're in a position where you can see it operating at its best, you can kind of understand what is possible and how it looks, and watch the process. So
you're right. And I'll tell you a little story on that, because it happened. It's Wednesday. It happened on Monday.
Okay.
So I was in court 2 days ago in a small claims case, and I was. It's one of the few times I've actually been in the building post COVID. Or I shouldn't even say post COVID. During COVID, I guess we're still in it. But I was in the building, and I was talking to the other attorney on the other side of the case, and we were talking about how different things are now that COVID's happening. And the reason I bring this up is because one of the topics we talked about was people being able to watch cases. It's always been, our society relies on having open courtrooms so that the society can come and verify that, hey, this is going the way it's supposed to go, and that nobody's being railroaded, and that the procedure is happening as it's supposed to happen. And now that these courts, many of them have gone to Zoom or online forums for performing the cases, for going through trial, it's been a complete shift and very difficult for the average layperson to come watch a court case. You can't just show up to the Gwinnett County Courthouse and sit in a pew, or show up in London, right, to Old Bailey and just sit and watch, because there's nothing to watch. There's nothing happening. And that's been a big change, because it is something that a lot of people, like you said, Russ, are interested in. And there are a lot of folks that come and they have nothing to do that morning. They're retirees, they're interested, whatever it is, they're in the neighborhood, and their first meeting's not till 2 o'clock, and they want to see what's going on at the courthouse. So they come and they just sit and watch. It's a fascinating thing to watch. But in COVID, it's hard to do that.
Yeah. And it's our legal process that is in action. I mean, it's an active participation. And the reality is, like you said, all the clerks, the judges, the attorneys, they're all people. I mean, they're all doing their lives in, different degrees of stress or anxiety or happiness or joy, whatever it happens to be, whatever emotion happens to be brought to the courtroom that day from the participants can, sway or make some adjustments in the way that things go. Because, you don't necessarily, if you're in a bad, bitter mood and you just had an argument with your spouse, it's like you might be more argumentative in court. So it's like, and it just carries over. So there's no downside to being kind.
It's true. So I saw that, and Angie's right. She's right. She's 100% right. That's the reason, actually, if you really want to talk about the reason I created Gavel, what really started it all was I was in court and watching a case before mine, and the plaintiff, who should have won a $6,000 judgment for a loan that she gave to the defendant that never got paid back, the plaintiff was so emotional in court and was arguing with the judge and went on for, first they ask you for, at the call of the calendar, how much time do you think you're going to take? And they said 10 minutes. Well, she gets up and starts testifying, and an hour later, the judge says, "Are you done?" And she says, "No, judge, I got to tell you more. And the judge says, "You have 5 minutes." She went on for another 20 minutes. And the judge just became so frustrated with the case, because they're people too, right? Like, as much as we expect judges at every level to remove emotion, make determinations and decisions based only on the law, and on the evidence presented. Sometimes that doesn't always happen. And in this case, it didn't. And the judge ruled in favor of the defendant, which should never have happened. On appeal, it would have been reversed in a heartbeat. Like, I couldn't believe what I saw. And I said, you talk about an easily preventable problem. Yeah. Like, this is something that should have never happened. And once I saw that, it started to become a pet peeve of mine, like turning the lights off when you leave a room, or closing the door when you're out on your patio, or whatever people's pet peeves are, that I started just noticing these things. Every time I would go to court, I would notice somebody do something that I'm like, oh man, if they hadn't done that, they would have won their case, right? If they hadn't done this, they would have won their case. And so that's where the program, which started as about 5 videos, grew to 70, because I started noticing all of these things. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to make something for people, like, small claims get small attention from attorneys. It just does. Yeah. But I said, I want to change that. I want to give small claims big attention. And so I want to make, if I'm going to make a program, I want to make sure it covers as much as I can possibly give, as much information, as much advice, as many tips and tricks as I can possibly give somebody, so that they really do have as much as they can when they go into court.
I want to. Sarathi had a question. Do LinkedIn, Steve, would you like to know what the opportunities are doing in courses you offer on PM Cheers Love? So are you talking about, Sarathi, are you talking about courses in for your country, or are you talking about, maybe you could clarify that. And then Cassandra had another question. How do you recommend providing a better understanding of kindness can still be direct and consistent in delivery method? Oftentimes I'm told the direct and specific information I provide isn't kind. However, it's only for purpose of gathering information in a non-emotional manner. That's a great point. There's fact finding, and there's an opportunity to be direct, and I was in an experiment or an experience where someone from New York, I was in Seattle, and sometimes people just ramble on about an explanation of something, and he was like, "Just spit it out. What do you need?" So it's like, be direct. Just tell me what you need. Just tell me what you need. It's like, and it was a realization that it's really about, cut the embroidery, get to the point. And you're thinking to yourself, well, what is the point? And And I guess from Cassandra's point is she was delivering clear, concise information that may not necessarily sound as kind. And it's probably a kind way to deliver it because it's the quickest way to a resolution. So I don't know. There's a balance in there someplace, I'm guessing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's absolutely a balance. I mean, there is a difference between, hey, I need to just get this information from you, and I want to learn more about you. And that's same with the situation. I want to get the information about the situation versus I want to learn more about why and how. And these are conversational topics.
Yeah.
And part of that is upfront, being upfront about what you need. And in my mind, almost like a preface to the conversation, right? Or to that portion of whatever it is you're doing. I mean, Russ, you would learn nothing about people if you said, okay, we're going to do a pirate broadcast. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. It's going to be 4 minutes long. Keep your answers concise, and then we'll hang up, and you can enjoy the rest of your day, right? That's not the format of your program. It wouldn't make any
program. No,
it wouldn't make any sense. But if it's, look, I need your name, your email address, your phone number, and your mailing address so that we can contact you, right? That's being direct, but it's certainly not being antagonistic, right? Not being mean to somebody.
Yeah.
But by laying it out that way ahead of time, you've given them the heads up. Okay, they mean business. This is what they're trying to gather. And then you go through, okay, so what's your name, right? You've already told the person, this is what I need from you. And I need to do it fairly quickly because that's the way the system is set up, or that's how my role, right? Whatever it is, that's what I need to do. But by prefacing that, instead of just like, throwing first pitch, you're letting them warm up a little bit. And I think that heads up makes a world of difference.
And I think it also, kindness can show up in subtle ways, like you said, turning the lights off when you leave the room, returning your shopping cart in the parking lot. It's throwing the trash away when it's 2 feet away from the common area, or saying please and thank you, and making sure that things take, it's like, be human, help out, contribute. It's not.
I'll tell you what my grandfather says, Russ. My grandfather says all the time. He uses one word. He says, think. He goes, just like that. He says, think. He goes, when I was a kid, we thought. But now people don't think. And he used to always tell me, if you think, that's all you really need to do to get ahead of, and he would just make up a number, right? 80% of society. If you just think, you will be, because we all know it's like a dietitian, right? Eat less. Or that a salad with light dressing is going to be healthier for you than the hamburger. Yeah. But we don't think about it, right? Returning the cart is the nice thing to do at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Right? Or throwing the trash away at your trash can instead of just tossing it on the floor and waiting for somebody else to do it. Cleaning the dishes, right? These are things, sure, they take a little bit of time, but if you just think, that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's a great statement. Hey, I just want to give a couple of people. We started late, Stephen. I just I appreciate your flexibility on here because for some reason this show is like, didn't want to start to begin with. The audio wasn't working, so I was like, okay. But Gabriel says, love the background flag, Russ. Thank you. I'm glad you noticed that, Gabriel. I'm changing it up, trying to do some things. If you have a commute, you could pick your neighbor.
Yeah, there's truth to that.
There is truth to that. What do you think is the hardest things about becoming a lawyer? What's the most difficult thing?
That is a great question. So, I got to really think about that. And my initial thought is law school is the hardest thing about becoming a lawyer. Getting into law school, going through it, the 3 years, or 4 years or night school, however you do it, graduating, and then you are, right? And then you're a lawyer. Now, there's a whole host of secondary questions to that. Hardest things about becoming a good lawyer, a successful lawyer, and then where do you measure success, right? This is what lawyers do. We don't, like I said, there's no simple answer. But I do think that the most important thing about being a good lawyer is developing a rapport or a connection with your clients. And that's in any business. That's not limited to just being a lawyer, right? I depend on my clients to hire me and to pay me. And and to hire me again, right? That a lot of times I tell people I'm not working for today's case, I'm working for tomorrow's case.
Yeah.
Because I want you to know that I'm here for you, and that when you have an issue or a problem, I'm the guy you go to.
Yeah.
It's the same thing about shopping, right? The stores you shop at, you shop there over and over again. It's very rare that we buy one thing from one place and never go back again unless the experience was bad.
Yeah.
And that's when you're thinking about, a lot of lawyers get hung up in the day-to-day putting out the fires, right? How do I handle this case right now? What do I need to, this is a phone call I need to make. The court's waiting. I need a motion filed. I need the response is due next week. And we forget that when we're in that fire, you forget to look at the forest, right? And that's, to me, a lot of that, and I'm waxing poetic a little bit. I tend to do that. Lawyers do. But it's that's, to me, what's most important about being a good lawyer is remembering you're dealing with people. You are people. People rely on you. You rely on people. And without those connections and without those relationships, you're nothing. You will be unsuccessful. You will not be a good lawyer.
Yeah. People are people, and you have to deal with personalities, the emotions and everything that come along with being a people. So that's just the way it goes. Angie says that will be Tracy when she's retired. LOL. I'm not sure what statement that was, Angie, but Tracy, Tracy's the producer on the show. So I interviewed former Judge Kathy Schrader from
Gwinnett County. That's here in Metro Atlanta. Judge Schrader's great. She's wonderful.
Fantastic.
We're lucky to have really good judges here.
Yeah. Yes. True legal process is always lengthy. Also, kindness is powerful. Thank you, Sarathi. First pitch, you nice basketballers for sure, man. Baseball.
There you go.
So, I just really, thanks, Stephen, for being here today. I just really appreciate the fact that we were able to do this. For some reason, it didn't start exactly on time, so forgive. I mean, I've done 270 some odd shows, and it's like, there are occasions where things happen, and it's just a matter of being able to be flexible, compromise, be a human. Kindness is cool. Smiles are free, and I just really appreciate you bringing some of these stories to the pirate broadcast and becoming a pirate today, Stephen. So
you bet, Russ. I thank you for your time and for your audience. I hope we brought some smiles to people's faces, because that's helps your day. That's for sure.
Well, I think that, having someone bring the humanity into the legal system right now, especially, is really something that we all can appreciate, because, if you look, like you said, if you turn on the news, we're all going to die. It's like the sky is falling, the world is ending. However, in reality, we're here, we're doing good work, we're having fun, and we're sharing a little bit of kindness every single day. So thank you so much for being here.
You bet.
Hey, everyone. As always, thank you so much for joining in the Pirate Broadcast. If you're watching this in the future or listening to the podcast, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. That's what gives it the juice that allows us to spread the word, encourage others to be kind. And as you know, kindness is cool. Smiles are free. So you enjoy the day. Till next time, we'll see you later. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.